fine. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shock Sport. Now, we have been away for a while. I do apologise. I guess that is the problem with a university-run radio show, is that sometimes we just get too busy. But I'm back with my usual two presenters here today, Sam and Matt. Of course, we are on YouTube and on Spotify now, so do make sure to check us out, and whichever medium you prefer. We are going to be discussing something a little bit different today. We're going to be doing a specific podcast, which is something that we haven't done very often. We are going to be talking really about the England squad, the England fixtures, but also we're going to be, right at the start, going to be talking a little bit about Manchester Giants and Salford City, just because there's been obviously a lot more news coming out of those two clubs in recent weeks that we haven't been able to cover in previous shows because, like I said before, we've been very busy with news days, assignment work, etc., etc. So obviously that has to take the priority. But wherever these two will be placed on the overlay, we're going to start with Matt. You're back on the show after a while. How's it been?
Hello. Yes, it's been all right, thank you. Sorry, I've been gone for a while. Just university really caught with me, but I'm back.
Yeah.
Ready to give my England prediction.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited for. I'm really excited. I've had this conversation so many times with so many different people. I'm really excited to have this conversation. It's a conversation I really enjoy having over and over again, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because I think it conjures up new arguments every time and new points every time. I think I don't think there's a single two people that can really agree on what would be the best England squad, which is probably why Southgate's struggling. And also alongside me today is Sam Oliphant. As usual, he's been on pretty much every show this year, which is quite an impressive feat. How are you doing, Sam?
Hi, I'm doing good. I think that's just the joys of being a first year. You're not as work heavy as the second years, it sounds like. But the last 2 weeks for me have been a bit crazy as well. I'm not right,
Yeah.
So.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think me and Matt help ourselves. We do have a lot of outside of university stuff to do as well. So, it does get very busy when you're in second year. So, good luck for that, Sam. I hope you look forward to it. you can sit there in your castle at the moment, but I'm sure you'll come to realise what we're on about next year.
I'm expecting it.
So let's get straight into it then. We'll start off with Manchester Giants, considering that is probably the topic that we'll be able to get sort of the least conversation out of. I think because me and Sam follow a bit of basketball. I've been following it heavily this year, which is it's nice to have some different sports to think about. Although Timberwolves aren't doing very well at the moment, and they are my chosen side. So, since we last joined you, I think on the 4th of March, I think was our last show. The Giants have played 3 games and lost all of them. I feel like we've been some sort of voodoo for them because ever since we've started covering them, they seem to be losing most of their games. They're second bottom now. They do have a new head coach, though, which is interesting. Obviously, Danny Byrne was relieved of his duties, and they signed up Lloyd Gardner. Sorry about that, Lloyd. I mispronounced your name. And he's going to be the head coach until the end of the season, obviously with the view to a long-term appointment. He was at Barking Academy for 13 years as director of basketball. During this time, they won national, European accolades. They actually won the NBL Division 1 playoffs in 2015, and he also got Coach of the Year award. And he is a very, very big player in the young player development market, sort of in the UK for basketball. So it does make sense to appoint him with the direction that Jamie Edwards wants the team to go in. Obviously, it is very much a youth-focused side this year, with a couple of the American players joining, but of course they've gone back to America due to COVID and being homesick, etc., etc., which is a real shame. The team itself, though, the last 3 results have not been brilliant. We're coming up to really a decent portion of the season, but they lost to the Eagles, the London Lions, which I guess is to be expected, and the Phoenix as well. Really tough derby defeat again to the Phoenix. Second one this season. But I don't know, it's a tough one. Of course, they have brought in some new players as well. Well, I say new players, it's only one new player, and I've got to try and pronounce this properly because otherwise I'm going to sound like an idiot. They signed the experienced player Aaron Gramapol. He's played for Iran internationally as well. He's played nationally for Iran. He rejoined the side. He'd been there previously and obviously left. But he's back, and hopefully one of the players that can actually take the team to the next level. It hasn't really worked out so far for the side themselves, but there is certainly a lot of promise there. Obviously, this is their sort of first new season in the new direction they're going in. There's been a big reform at the club. Sam, despite recent results, that the change in management, the new sort of direction that they're going in, I think it's one of those projects that could take a while to sort of pay off.
Yeah, but I think it was probably the right decision to get rid of the last manager and bring in Lloyd Gardner, because as you said, he's got a lot of these accolades. He's been quite successful. He'll bring a different atmosphere to the changing room, and that always brings it might be a little bit of a boost. As we've seen with many managers that come into new teams. But yeah, as you said, I think with these players leaving, but back home to America, I think that definitely impaired their performances a bit. But yeah, we just got to see what this new manager can bring to the team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been a rough time for Manchester Giants. They're second bottom now. They had a good start to the season, to be fair. It was their best ever start, but now they are starting to sort of lose their way a little bit. And I think with COVID and the whole sort of cluster of fixtures, it's turning to be quite a rough time for the club. And another club that's having a rough time locally is Salford as well. Sacking Richie Wellens, really, really surprising decision by Gary Neville. And as brought about on Twitter, quite the hypocritical one. He has been someone who has called out owners for sacking managers too quickly. Richie Wellens has only been in the job a couple of months, getting decent results. Won them the the Papa John's trophy, as it's called now. Matt, very strange decision, isn't it? Because Salford have actually been okay. They haven't been, anything extraordinary. But for Neville, I just think this is a very, very strange decision.
Listen, I don't understand it. When I read it, I had to check it twice because honestly, I don't get it. They come off, like you said, winning a trophy at the weekend. It's the Papa John's trophy or whatever, but it's a trophy in the cabinet for a League Two team, beating, was it League One Portsmouth, was it? Or was it, I don't know, but League One Portsmouth.
Yeah, Portsmouth, let's not forget, Portsmouth are a decent side in League One. They're not mugs. This is a League One side that are trying to get into the Championship.
Yeah, and I just don't get it. I don't understand. We're in obviously one of the most difficult seasons footballers have had to play because of COVID and no fans and whatever. I think the last thing you need is to break up stability in your own team by sacking a manager. So I don't understand the thought process behind it. Maybe they're really pushing for that promotion, but I think right now fans, I don't know, me as a fan personally, League Two is very impressive considering 5 years ago they were the fifth division of a non-league.
Yeah,
they've done well to get to League Two, and you can always try and run really fast before you can walk, and I think that's what Gary Neville's trying to do. He's really trying to get Salford into the League One Championship, and he's really pushing for it. And you can see that by the decisions they're making, They haven't won in 4 games, I guess, which is something that needs to be looked at. 2 draws and 2 losses in the last 4, just outside of the 7th place, which is obviously the playoffs. It doesn't make sense to me, but obviously Gary Neville knows a lot more than I do. So if it pays off, it pays off. But, with what is it, less than 15 games to go now? I don't know how many games have been played in League Two.
About 11. There's 46 games in the League One.
Right. So about 11 games left.
Yeah.
And to be fair, they sit a good way off. Is it 6 or 7 points off 7th place?
Yeah, they're 6 points off. So it's nothing like a couple of wins. If Newport County drop a few points, they're right back in it. For me, considering they already sacked Graham Alexander earlier in the season, for me it doesn't make any sense that they've appointed Richie Wellens, had him for a few months, and then sacked him as well. For me, just you need stability, and they've brought in Gary Bowyer, who is sort of known around the lower leagues of football fans. He's not the most popular figure. Very, very dull style of football. He hasn't been too successful in the past few jobs that he's had. So you sort of have to look at that and wonder, well, how have they made that decision? Salford were very, very impressive in the Papa John's Trophy final. Played some really good stuff. Should have scored more goals, but that's just a lack of clinical finishing from their forward players. We also have to remember Gary Neville isn't the only board member. There are the other, 3 or 4 others. Scholes, Giggs, who else? I can't even remember. That's Beckham. There's more than just Neville involved in this, but he is the primary sort of, runner of the club. So, I don't know, like you said, Matt, it's a tough one. Can you see them, can you even see this improving the side at all? Or do you think this is just another way to sort of reduce the chance of actually getting promoted?
I don't see them getting promoted this season, personally. Even if they make playoffs, fair enough, enjoy the playoffs. They're obviously very good at performing at Wembley, because it's not just the Papa Johns, it's also the playoffs they faced a couple of seasons back now. But right now, League 2, I'm very excited to go to games next season at Salford, because I haven't been to one yet, and I think just for me, League 2's got a bit more, tough tackles and grit,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited. So if they do get promoted, League 1 will be just as good. But for me, I don't want to say I'm happy with League 2, because obviously I always want the team to go forward and push on. So League 1, Championship, Premiership one day, let's go for it. But there's nothing wrong with having a couple of seasons in League 2 to find your feet, get the stability and build a foundation, which is what a team needs to progress. And if you keep sacking your managers, you're not going to build that foundation. Graham Alexander was very good for Salford in the 4 or 5 years he was here. We need someone like that with a bit more experience that can push on and get a team like Salford up into League 1 Championship. I think it's going to be a couple of years before we say they're a Premier League side. But I don't know. I'm happy with League 2 at the moment. I think they're performing extremely well. It's not like they're in a relegation battle or anything. Like we said, they are pushing for playoffs at the moment. They're performing quite well. And I just think we can get through this season with a high enough position, get that money in, get that financial backing, and then just go again next season with fans and push for playoffs and push for the top 2.
Yeah, exactly. It's as you say, and it is going to take a few years for them to get into League 1 Championship. It's not an easy thing to do. League 2 is a tough division, and Gary Bowyer, he's got plenty of experience, so you could say that it's a good appointment in the fact that he's got a lot of knowledge of lower league football, but he hasn't done particularly well in his past few jobs. I mean, Bradford fans can tell you that. It's a tough gig. They're in danger of becoming a little bit like the League 2 version of Chelsea, really. Any success that isn't deemed, trophies or playoffs, and you're gone, really. So, I don't know, it's a strange one. Sam, I mean, what do you think about this? Do you think that Bowyer, in terms of experience, is a good appointment? Or do you think that they could have maybe just at least stuck with Wellens until the end of the season and seen where they wanted to go from there?
I think, personally, I think they should have stuck with Wellens. As Matt said, I think it ruins the stability of the club a little bit, once again. After, COVID and everything that's going on, I think that just disturbs the environment a bit more. When you're looking at Gary Bowyer's success at other clubs, his win percentages are all below 40%. Majority of them are all below 40% in recent years, and I think you've got to look at that in the sense of, is he going to be successful? And if you're saying, because I'll be honest, I've not seen much of his style of football, but if you're saying he plays a more defensive style, is that what fans will be wanting to see? If he's not successful as well at other clubs, I don't think he might be the right appointment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And, of course, for any Salford fans watching, leave your comments in the description down below. If you're watching us on YouTube, obviously on Spotify, you can't really do that. But it might be worth Spotify getting a comments feature, actually. That would be quite good. Right, let's move on then. And let's get on to the England squad, which is, of course, what we all want to talk about. This has been the big debate. Now, a very strange England squad, it has to be said, that's been called up. Although you can say that it's not a proper call-up, I guess, because it's the World Cup qualifiers and we haven't got the most difficult amount of games, and a lot of top clubs don't want their players going away. You could factor all of these into the decisions that were made, but we're going to go with our initial impressions first and then break it down by goalkeepers, defenders, midfielder, forwards. Then we're going to move on to the fixtures, see how we do, and then we'll probably call that a day for today's episode. So we'll start with Sam. What were your initial reaction? What was your initial reaction to the squad call-up?
I thought it was intriguing to see some of the players that were included. I think, from my perspective, I think it's quite clever from Gareth Southgate. I think you look at it and you think maybe we're heading into the Euros now. He might want to start selecting players that he sees being in that Euro squad, or you could look at it as in he's trying to experiment as many players as he can to see who is really the best option to take when going to the Euros. Personally, based on form and based on the players I see there, I don't see many problems apart from a couple, but that's my opinion as a someone from Scotland. But I think it's an exciting team. I think it's got a lot of youth in there, which is good to see. And
Yeah.
I think when you look at the fixtures coming up, I think it should be enough to win those anyway. So
Yeah. And Matt, how about you? There's been a lot been made about the lack of maybe usual suspects we see in the England squad, but I think from your perspective, there's definitely some good players in there. It's not a terrible squad at all.
No, I'm very excited with the squad. Obviously, I'm not taking this squad. I'm taking it with a pinch of salt due to, like you say, injuries, fixtures coming up and all that. This is not going to be the Euro squad that gets called up. Let's just outright say that. This is very much a team, like Southgate does for any fixture. It brings up a couple of players that can get a couple of minutes as an England player and just try and give as much experience to as much players as possible, which I think Southgate does. I'm not always a fan of Southgate's work, but he's got some young talent. I'm particularly excited personally to John Stones to be back because he's played amazing this season. And if he wasn't called up to the Euros, I'd be absolutely fuming, to say the least, because John Stones has just been incredible. Lingard, I'm very excited that he's been called up again because obviously his form with West Ham has picked up tremendously. So I'm excited to see Lingard getting a shout again for the Euros. I think he should also be in contention. And then you've got the likes of Jude Bellingham, Ollie Watkins, all this new talent, that doesn't actually get, especially Bellingham because he's playing over in Germany and he is 17, 18. He doesn't get the talk on the media as much as he should do, but he's a talent that's coming through, which is exciting, and he plays well, and he's a big name. Well, not a big name, but he's got big potential behind his name.
Sorry to interrupt there, but
No.
yeah, so pretty positive it seems. I mean, I'll be honest, I read the squad and I wasn't wholly convinced. I think one of the positives though was that we finally have left backs and right backs in the squad. Can you believe it? I never thought I would see the day where an England squad had a left back, a natural left back called up, because we've called up so many right backs that have played in that position. So it's nice to actually get that for once and not have to play players out of position. We'll start with the goalkeepers then, because there's been this has probably been one of the most debated positions, I would say. A lot of people have wanted Dean Henderson or Nick Pope to get a shout. I think Nick Pope seems to be the main shout for England goalkeeper. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, I'll go for it. Personally, I think this is the first time in my lifetime, well, I might be mistaken, but I think it's the first time where goalkeeper's been a big talking point. Previously, we look back to the 96 Euros, David Seaman, and then it sort of transitioned, and to me, in my eyes, David James was selected number one, Joe Hart, and then Pickford, but obviously Pickford's... I've missed off so many there, but in my eyes, that's what I saw. There's always that solid... There was never a debate. But now, going into this Euros, there is a debate. Because for me, it's between Pope or Henderson, and Pickford for me doesn't... There's too many mistakes in him for me, which is a shame because... Well, it's not really a shame. I'm not too bothered. But for me, there's too many mistakes. But Nick Pope and Henderson, this is a debate worth having. Henderson's got, I would say, more talent, but he's younger. Whereas Pope, I think, is a class goalkeeper playing for Burnley, which is a shame. No offence to Burnley, but he's not getting that high-end World Cup. Sorry, like semi-finals, finals. He's not getting that experience. Whereas Henderson could potentially get, or he's getting that experience this season with United, with the League Cup. Just been knocked out of the FA Cup, but he's getting the experience in these semi-final games, or not final games, but oh well. So there's a debate there, but for me, Henderson, I've always got to get a dig in at United. For me, Henderson is just that little bit too young. He's, what is he, 22, 23? A little bit too inexperienced for this season, maybe. But the World Cup, I'm saying Henderson number one. But for the Euros, I'm saying Pope, personally.
Fair enough. I think Sam Johnston is actually quite an interesting call-up. I know a few people might be a bit confused at his inclusion, but you know, he has been very, very good for West Bromwich Albion this season. I think it's good of Southgate to call up players that wouldn't have got a look in previous years because they don't play for glamorous clubs. Sam, you know, obviously you're a United fan, so you're probably going to think that Henderson should start. I'm of the opinion that Nick Pope, I think, is probably our best goalkeeper. I think, you know, he's got the physicality, he's tall, his reflexes are excellent as well. He's very agile for such a tall goalkeeper. But obviously, you know, you'll have maybe a slightly different view on things. So who do you think that Southgate should go for? Or do you think that he'll probably rotate the goalkeepers throughout these games?
I can't see Sam Johnson really getting a game in these next few games. I think he'll rotate the two goalkeepers between Henderson and Pope. That's what I can see happening. Yeah, as you said, I might have a bias, but I would start Henderson. I think some of the saves that he's pulled off, especially in the last tie against AC Milan in the Europa League, I think some of those saves are outstanding from him. I think his distribution has improved a lot from when he first, came into the United team in December. His distributions improved a lot, and yeah, I mean personally, yeah, I would start Henderson because I know as a United fan I'd be more assured with him in goal over someone I don't know as well. But I mean, I can see an argument for why both goalkeepers would have a shot at being the number one.
Yeah, of course, the main thing with Pickford has always been his distribution, but I think with more and more goalkeepers now coming through and having the ability to actually distribute the ball, I think that a lot of people are going to be more, excited about that sort of thing. They're not going to be too bothered about distribution because most of our goalkeepers can do it. So, yeah, it does seem as though Pickford's time as England goalkeeper could be maybe coming towards a slight end. We never know. I mean, obviously he's injured at the moment, so we might not necessarily see him completely excluded from the squad, but I think for now this is a good chance for us to experiment with different goalkeepers and maybe look at someone else. I still think Nick Pope is a very, very good shout for the starting position. I think that his physicality, his collection from crosses, things like that will be a lot more, will provide more, I think, for England. Because we from corners and things like that, we do lack a little bit of height sometimes. I don't know what you guys make of that, because Pickford is quite small.
Yeah, purely like naturally he is 6'2", 6'4", Pope. He's a lot taller than Pickford anyway, and Pickford's always joked about and mocked for having small arms anyway. So just generally, just in terms of natural physique, Pope looks more like a goalkeeper than Pickford. For me, he's got more of a presence in the box than Pickford does, especially in corners, set pieces. You can see Pope's there and he's ready. Pickford always blends in for me, and he's jumping just to reach some of the heights of the centre forwards, whereas Pope is naturally taller anyway, and that always helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does. And he's 1'9", so if anyone can convert that into feet, that would be ideal.
I think that's about 6'4". I think
he's 6'4", is Pope.
1'9". Nah, it can't be 6'4", surely.
I think.
Let's have a look, shall we?
No, 6'2". He's about my height.
6'2".
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he was taller than that.
Yeah, same.
I thought he was about 6'4", 6'5", but apparently not.
Yeah. I
guess he does look huge when Pickford's about 5'2", so that doesn't make sense. Apologies to Jordan Pickford. He's probably not listening, but
he's really not listening. But
yeah, he's definitely not listening.
Oh well, Pickford is only 6'1", so
right, okay.
I take back everything I just said.
Wow, maybe it's
the arms.
Pope's wingspan then.
Yeah, I think it's the arms.
Yeah, it might be Pope's wingspan. That is a big surprise. I am surprised about that. Right, okay, well let's move on then. I think we can all probably, I don't know, who are we going with our goalkeeper then?
I'm picking Pope, personally.
Pope? What about you, Sam?
I'm taking Henderson.
Okay, so I've got the deciding vote then. I've got the deciding vote for our starting goalkeeper position here. I'm going to go with Nick Pope. I apologise, Sam, but
That's the problem.
I think for the World Cup, another season at United, playing regular games, for the World Cup he's a shoo-in for England number one, I think, Henderson, but it's all about how his next few years goes, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's move on to the defenders and, of course, choose our preferable defence. Are we going to go with a back four or a back five here, fellas?
Now, if we're thinking... Sorry, go on, Tom.
Well, I'd go back four, but I think Southgate's going to take a back five.
Yeah, well, this is our choice here. This is our choice.
Then I'd go back four.
I go back four as well.
Okay, we're going to go with the back
4-3-3,
four then. We're going to go with the back four. So, we'll go through these defenders. Obviously, we'll talk about them personally, and then obviously we'll just make our own defence out of them. But, of course, we do have We'll start with the left-backs then. Ben Chilwell and Luke Shaw. Finally, Luke Shaw getting a recall to the England squad after... God, how long? I don't even know. How long has it been since he last played for England? I can't even remember the last time he played. Of course, his season this season has been superb. He's been really, really impressive for Manchester United. Of course, we brought in Tellez to replace him, or give him competition at least. And it looks like that competition has spurred him on to incredible heights. Of course, scored the second goal for United against City. He's had a really consistent string of fantastic performances as well defensively, and going forward he's been really impressive. And then Ben Chilwell, maybe a little bit more muted. It hasn't quite happened for him at Chelsea. I think he's been sort of outshone by other players, but he might get a chance to explode again under Tuchel. We never know. But who are we having for our left back then? Matt, we'll start with you this time.
I'm actually picking Luke Shaw, which again, being a City fan, it doesn't annoy me because it's England. So for me, I've watched a couple of United games because I think with football being on 24/7, why not? And for me, it's very noticeable for me, he's like Bruno Fernandes. It's noticeable in the United squad when Luke Shaw is not playing, which I think speaks wonders for any player's ability. And if you could take him out of a team and the team is worse, that is one of the highest compliments you can have as a footballer. So I think Luke Shaw, Ben Chilwell's obviously had a great season, Leicester having a great season. But for me, Luke Shaw.
He's at Chelsea.
Yeah, that's what I meant. cut that out.
I know, I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving that in.
No. Yeah, well, even better than Luke Shaw for me.
He's given up. Yeah, Luke Shaw.
I've given up.
Yeah, I would probably agree. Sam, what do you think about this? I mean, I can probably guess your answer.
I think you probably know. I think you got to take Luke Shaw, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think his attacking threat is what he's really improved on this year. I think he provides so much up front for us now. I think you saw it against, was it Man City scored against? I think it was that, wasn't it? That brilliant run. No, I think he's probably outshone Chilwell this season in terms of that, that English left back. So yeah, I'd probably go Luke Shaw.
Damn. Well, there's a surprise. There's a turn up for the books, ladies and gentlemen. The Manchester United fan choosing Luke Shaw. I think that's a unanimous decision, though. I think we can all agree Luke Shaw is probably the best fit at the moment for left back. Let's move on to the centre backs thing, because we've got a bit of choice here. Very, very surprised inclusion, though. Eric Dyer. I was very surprised about that because he's not been good for Tottenham at all this season. I would have preferred to see someone such as Ezri Konsa maybe from Aston Villa. I think Lewis Dunk has been good this season. James Tarkowski. Can someone help me out? Is there any others? Michael Keane, of course, from Everton.
Yeah.
Ben Godfrey from Everton as well. Both of those have had solid seasons. So then you sort of have to sit there and think, why on earth has he called up Eric Dyer?
That's a hard one, isn't it? I've got no idea why he's called up Dyer.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
To me, personally, experience, I think, I'm not going to defend Eric Dyer getting called up, because like you said, there's so many better options, especially if you just look at this past season's form. But the only thing I can think of for these World Cup qualifiers is experience in terms of he's got some of the most caps among the defence, looking at it quickly. Tyrone Mings doesn't have that many, Conor Coda doesn't have that many. I think he's up there with someone with the most sort of caps for England. I might be wrong about that, but I think out of all the centre-backs, he does have the most. I think it's between him and Harry Maguire. But so for me, the only reason I can see him getting called up is because experience and caps and
Yeah.
I don't know, a personal connection to Southgate. I don't know.
Maybe he's got something on Southgate, I don't know. But alongside Eric Dyer, of course, Tyrone Mings was called up, Harry Maguire, Connor Cody, and John Stones. I think Connor Cody and Eric Dyer, for me, were the confusing ones, because even though I'm a Wolves fan, Connor Cody has not been that good this season. But I do know, obviously we do know that Southgate took to Cody very quickly and likes him as part of the leadership team in the England squad. But for me, does this signify he's probably going to play with a 5 at the back? Yes, although I would be very, very surprised if he played with a 5 at the back against San Marino. I mean, come on.
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be too surprised.
We can't play 5 at the back against San Marino. There's no way.
You can play one at the back.
Cody and Dyer, probably the two sort of inclusions. I guess we can agree on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The ones we don't really expect. But the interesting thing now is Maguire, Mings and Stones. Now, for me, Stones is a shoo-in. Oh, he's got to play. Stones has been absolutely superb for City this season.
Yeah, I agree. I'm never gonna disagree. He's taken his career from possibly the lowest point where even me as a City fan, shamefully, I was even saying there's no coming. When he made the mess last season in the cup final against Villa, he slipped up and Villa went and scored. I just went, yeah, there's always a mistake in him, but he's just completely turned his whole thing around. And the performance he's played this season, he's a shoo-in for me, I think, for the Euros. If he's not starting, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, Harry Maguire, Sam, a player that obviously gets the limelight a lot for his price tag, but he's not been too bad. He has had some stinkers though this season for United. He's definitely made some pretty big mistakes, but I think on the whole he's been okay. I guess you can agree with me on that.
Yeah.
From a United perspective, where would you see him in this squad?
I mean, I'd be starting him. I think he's got a mistake in him every now and then, but I think the issue that Maguire has now is for every mistake he makes, because of his price tag, his performances for the next 5-6 games always get overshadowed as poor, and people pick up on everything. But I think despite that, he's had some good performances for Man United this season. So I'd probably take him over Tyrone Mings in my starting side. But I think the one thing that I don't think we're picking up on is if Southgate goes with this back 5, I think Kyle Walker, who's been put in the squad, he'll probably be put at that right centre-back role.
Yeah, that is true, yeah. That is an interesting one. I do think he's decent at centre-back. I would prefer him as a wing-back, though. I don't know what you think.
I mean, in the World Cup, he played in the position Sam was just talking about, that sort of right centre-back, alongside John Stones and Harry Maguire. I think that was the three that sort of played with, I don't know. Yeah, if we're doing our 4 at the back team, obviously Kyle Walker at right back if we get onto that. But for me, the 2 centre backs I would pick, not just out of the ones that have been called up for these World Cup qualifiers, but to me, out of everyone, I would just play John Stones and Maguire together. I think that I just think that's a great. I think John Stones will help cut out Maguire's mistakes and vice versa. So I think that'll work very well together. And also, just thinking about that FIFA chemistry with Maguire and Shaw both playing on the left and Stones and Walker both playing on the right. I just think that works.
It doesn't work like that.
I know it doesn't work like that, but I just think there's something nice about that. I don't know, having like a full Manchester back 4, like a brick wall, clean sheet after clean sheet.
I've never heard that. Do you know what? I haven't heard anyone brought that argument up yet, but I guess it would be good for your ultimate team if you're avid FIFA players out there listening.
If Southgate worries about that, I don't know. I don't think he does.
I don't think he does, to be honest, mate. Maybe Football Manager.
Maybe
not FIFA. If we're playing a back 3, I think you'd have probably Maguire at the centre and then Stones and Walker either side. I think for me that would probably be the pick of the bunch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, that's if it's 5 at the back, isn't it?
Yeah, that's if it's 5 at the back. As is a 4, so I will agree with Matt. I'm going to say Maguire and Stones, I think, for our centre-back pairing. What about you, Sam?
I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's pretty solid. I think Maguire maybe gets a little bit more stick than he deserves. I do think he's a decent centre back. He's not world class, but I think that John Stones, if he has another season like this next season, I think he could be considered in that top range of centre backs, which would be nice because we haven't had one for a while since the sort of Ferdinand Terry era. Really. It's been a while since we've had a real world class centre back. Right, let's move on. Right backs. So Kyle Walker, I guess, kind of counts, but we've spoke about him. The other two that were called up were Reece James, which I think is an interesting choice. He's been good for Chelsea. And Kieran Trippier from Atleti, of course, competing for the title this year, having a decent season. He's had a couple of injury problems and betting issues as well, which is a little bit sus. But I think Trippier, for me, actually, is a shoo-in, really. I think he's a very, very underrated player. I don't know about you, Sam.
I'd be going Reece James, to be honest.
Really?
Wow. I really like Reece James. I think he brings so much to the attack, and I think he was questioned a bit last season for his defensive side of the game, but I think he's shown this season that he can do it. So I'd put Reece James. I'd take Reece James.
What about you, Matt? What are you saying for this one?
I'm surprised
it's a tough choice.
This is one of the tougher choices defensively, that is, because attacking is just so many choices. But for me, it's difficult because Trent wasn't called up. Trent Alexander-Arnold wasn't called up for these qualifiers. I think for the Euros he will be. Let's be honest. So he's in the back of my mind as well. But I think this season Trent lacked defensively because without Van Dijk next to him, he's sort of been exposed a tiny bit, being
I think that's
gone over it quite a few times at home. I think it's 6 losses in a row for any Liverpool fans listening, just to remind you. But for me,
they did beat Wolves, which was annoying. But
yeah, if you played them at Anfield, you probably would have beaten them.
Yeah.
For me, Kyle Walker, not just as a City fan, but it's weird. I was having this discussion with one of my mates, and he made out a very good point. I'm not going to credit him because why would I do that? But I'll take it as my own point. He said for him, Trent Alexander is great going forward, and Wan-Bissaka is great defensively. And for him, Kyle Walker, he called him a boring player, but because he's just
he's good at both.
Yeah, a jack of all trades is sort of the term that was like remarked, and I just think that is what England need. And any player that's been coached by Pep Guardiola for 4 seasons is going to pick up and learn a lot. And I think it's been a long 3 years since the last World Cup that he has learned and become a lot more of an experienced member in the England squad. So I think the Euros, him at right back, I think is quite secure. And the pace on the guy, he's just rapid, so quick.
Yeah, we do lack that, I think, in because it's a shame about Shaw, because obviously if he hadn't have had that huge injury, he was so quick when he was younger, but he has lost that sort of yard of pace, and I think Kyle Walker makes up for that. I think Kieran Trippier gets slept on quite a lot. His set-piece delivery is superb, and Sam mentioned, Sam and Matt obviously mentioned, Trent Alexander-Arnold's ability going forward, but I think Trippier is just as good with his set-piece delivery.
Well, just to throw it out there, if we were to switch it to a 5 at the back and have Walker playing in that right centre-back, but with Trippier out wide, them two can even swap over sometimes, just so Trippier's on the pitch for those set-pieces. Because I think we can all agree the highlight of the last World Cup, or one of the highlights, was his free kick against Croatia. The game didn't finish how we wanted it, but that is one thing I remember from that World Cup. It was phenomenal, and to have a player with that ability on the pitch, just in case for set pieces, England already lethal from set pieces, is worth a conversation or a discussion. But will he even get called up for the Euros? Would he just take? Will he take Walker, Trent, and James and leave Trippier out? Who knows?
That is the interesting one. But I think for us, what are we saying for our right back then? Because obviously we've got 4 at the back, so it's out of Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, and Reece James. So what are we going to go with, guys?
I think we have to agree to disagree, to be honest with you. I think that's going to be...
I'm going to
Reece
go
James
Walker.
over Kyle Walker.
Okay.
Walker.
You know what? Okay, I'll go Kyle Walker.
We've convinced him.
Think of that chemistry with Stones as well. Talking at a solid back wall.
Yeah, that's an impenetrable link, City and England. So for an team, listen, there you go. No, I think I would agree. Kyle Walker, I think he offers that degree of experience, pace. I think he's got a bit of both now. Defensively and going forward, I think he's definitely I think probably the most balanced right back out of the bunch there. So unfortunately, Reece James and Kieran Trippier do not make it into our team. So at the moment, we have Nick Pope in goal, back two of John Stones and Harry Maguire, and then Shaw and Walker as our fullbacks. I think that sounds like a pretty decent team so far. I'm not going to lie. I think that would definitely do well. To be honest, that's probably what I would start with normally in the Euros, let alone just with this sort of reduced squad. Of course, it does depend on a back five. I think Connor Cody will maybe play at some point. If he's going to go with the back five, he tends to play Cody and Dyer, which is Dyer. But it depends what formation Southgate wants to go with. Let's move on to our midfielders now. Are we going to go with a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 here? Because this will change the makeup of our midfield, I think.
Sorry, go on, Sam.
No, I think realistically, I think you go 4-3-3, but you could maybe argue that the two players playing either left or right are probably more defensive anyway.
I think personally it will be a 4-2-3-1, but I would like it to be a 4-3-3 with just one CDM.
Yeah, I would like a 4-3-3 if I'm being honest.
Should we go? Because we're not Southgate. Should we go 4-3-3?
We're gonna go. I think we can go 4-3-3. Can we agree on 4-3-3? I think.
I can agree.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yep, good stuff. So I think we're gonna have probably one defensive midfielder and then two advanced midfielders. I think it's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right, let's get into the midfielders then. Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Jesse Lingard, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice, and James Ward-Prowse. Very, very interesting selection by Southgate, has to be said. I was quite excited about this one, actually. I saw this and I thought, you know what? That's actually an interesting midfield selection. Now, obviously the one that stands out is James Ward-Prowse and Jesse Lingard. Calvin Phillips has already been called up before, so it's not too much of a surprise. Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham have also had previous call-ups, but we'll talk about those in a second. Well, let's focus on Lingard and Ward-Prowse then. Ward-Prowse, Southampton have struggled recently. They had an excellent start to the season. It's not quite gone well for them in the past few months, but he's been a standout player for them, hasn't he, Sam?
Yeah, I think he's a player that has an abundance of quality. I think from set pieces, he's brilliant. And he'd definitely be somebody that I would consider... I'd consider starting him, actually, in these next games, to be honest with you. Because I think we already know what someone like Mason Mount can bring to the team, so I think it would be interesting to see someone like James Ward-Prowse, if they can bring anything else to the team.
Yeah, and Matt, Jesse Lingard, a player that has had a very mixed career. Things weren't really working out for him at Manchester United, but he has been electric since joining West Ham. He's been one of the form players in the division. Are you happy to see him in the squad?
Yeah, I think if Southgate left him out with the form he's been in the last month or so, people would have asked questions. I think again this sort of fixture, one of the last call-ups before the Euros. It's good to test your team. It's good to test the players that are in form at the moment compared to your usual picks that might not be in form. So I think it's great, and he's really transformed a already very good West Ham team that were playing well this season. He's just added that extra bit of spice, to it, and it's incredible. And I think it would have been a shame if he didn't get called up. Again, we'll see how the end of the season goes for West Ham and for him in particular, whether he get called up for the Euros. But I think it's very exciting to see him, as well as Ward-Prowse. We were talking about set pieces before with Trippier. This kid can also bang in a set piece from anywhere on the pitch, it seems. So again, that sort of threat and that danger from set pieces, having that on the pitch is incredible. I tried to say two words then. But yeah, I'm excited to see them two play. The fact that they both got called up again is exciting. Obviously, it's good to see someone similar to Stones, who dropped off but has managed to get back on form, and it's just good to see from a fan perspective. Yeah,
and of course, another really nice couple of selections, really, for me, from a youth perspective as well. Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden, two very, very promising English midfielders. I think Foden this season for City has really started to come into his own and show his quality. And of course, Jude Bellingham, a player who only signed from Birmingham this summer, and he's already proving to be a superb acquisition for Dortmund. He's played in the Champions League, he's played a lot of games in the Bundesliga this season, and he's looked good as well. Scored a couple of goals. I'm really, really happy to see him included in this squad. I think that he's got a lot of experience for someone his age, and it's good to see him. I think as a box-to-box, he could be a very, very interesting inclusion. Foden as well, obviously from an attacking standpoint, definitely worth putting in the squad. I think that he's had a really good season. He's one of the best youngsters in the league statistically, but also with his performances, and he's shown that his technical ability is just superb. Matt, out of Bellingham and Foden, would you play both? Would you maybe give one a go and swap them over? What were your initial reactions to sort of seeing both of them in the squad?
I would personally pick Foden. Obviously, again, City fan, yeah, whatever. But I would pick Foden purely because the same reason that you sort of a couple of seasons ago, for the reason Foden wasn't getting picked, the experience. Bellingham, he signed this season from Birmingham, going over to Germany. Great, 17, 18 years old. I'm not too sure. Amazing. The guy's got potential, like I mentioned earlier on. But for me, Phil Foden's played this season, which everyone who wasn't a City fan, I think, sort of said, right, he needs to get steady games on this season if he wants to get called up for this Euros or the World Cup. He needs that, and he's had that. And not only has he had it, he's performed very well in them. Think against Liverpool at Anfield, against Arsenal at the Emirates. He was our standout player for both, considering he's so young. And I can say so many good things about Phil Foden. And I just think, taking him to the Euros, hands down, 100%. I always seem to find it difficult to fit him in a team, along with players that we haven't mentioned, sort of like Sancho, Grealish, Maddison. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is the tough. That's the tough thing, isn't it?
That's the difficult conversation, which is exciting as an England fan to have too many gifted players. That's always, it's not a bad thing, but it creates interesting conversations. But for me, Foden over Bellingham, I think, purely for that experience, and also I think Phil Foden is a little bit of a better player anyway. But I'm excited for Bellingham. It's great to get him called up again. Hopefully, a couple minutes under his belt for England is great for anyone.
Yeah, Sam, obviously Bellingham and Foden are two very different styles of player. Foden being very much the sort of the technical attacking midfielder, Bellingham more of a all-round central midfielder, a bit of a box-to-box maybe with the energy that he's got. Can you see these two maybe starting alongside each other in a midfield three, with maybe Rice or Calvin Phillips sitting a bit deeper?
I think down the line I can see it. Definitely, I don't think Bellingham's done enough to earn himself a start in these next few games. Maybe purely for experience he'll get some minutes, but I don't think he's done anything more than anybody else on that list to say I should be starting. And I think maybe Matt was being a bit too modest there. I think Foden's the only one in that midfield that I'm saying has to start. He's starting definitely in these next. I would definitely start him because I think he's a brilliant player. I could see him in the next year or two being the best player in the Premier League because I think he's got that ability. And what I would say is, like, do I believe Jude Bellingham will get to those heights? I don't think so. Do I think Jude Bellingham will be a world-class player? I don't know yet. But yeah, for me, Foden over Bellingham, and I'd say Foden has to go to the Euros already as well. I'm putting Foden in my squad for the Euros as well.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Of course, Foden is, 3 or 4 years older than Bellingham, which is mad to think about, really. Is he 3? Yeah, he might be 3 years older, actually.
He's 20, yeah.
Yeah. So let's not forget about Mason Mount, though, because I think he's a player that a lot of people will look over because of the whole sort of joke about him and Lampard. But, you watch him play, especially in the Chelsea-Liverpool game as well, you can see that he does have the ability to change games. He's been a very important player for Chelsea, and there's a reason why the managers have liked him. Even when Tuchel's come in, Mount is still playing, which I think says something. If he was such a favourite of Frank Lampard, why is Tuchel still giving him games in the first team. I mean, Matt, do you think that he's someone that actually could be potentially overlooked and underrated because of the amount of players we have?
I hope not, because for me, again, he's class. Just watching him play for Chelsea under Lampard, under Tuchel, doesn't matter. Amazing. Again, that game at Anfield against Liverpool, he was amazing, and he's just a talent, and he's still quite young. So I hope he doesn't get overlooked, because I personally like him not only as a player but as a person. I just think generally, if we were to say a midfield three now, to jump the gun, sorry. Personally, for the Euros, I would say Henderson and then Mount and Foden is my three in midfield.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I'm just throwing that out. I know Henderson wasn't called up. I'm reading through. I don't think any Liverpool player was called up. So maybe I don't know what that's about.
There's not a single one. No.
But I think Henderson will get called up for the Euros. I think he should be captain for the Euros personally, and I think Henderson, Mount, and Foden is my midfield three.
That's a solid show. A couple of the defensive midfielders then, Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips. Declan Rice has been, as as we've alluded to, has been really, really impressive this season. Maybe not a stylish player, but he's got energy. He can get up and down the pitch really well. I think he's a deceivingly good player, and particularly with how well West Ham have been doing this season, I think that it's definitely worth giving him a go. Calvin Phillips as well. Leeds are doing pretty well this season, maybe not as well as some of the media portray, but I think Calvin Phillips is definitely a very decent player, although he's not as young as a lot of people think. A lot of people seem to think Calvin Phillips is, like 21, 22. How interestingly, I'll ask you guys this. How old do you think Calvin Phillips is?
I think he's about 24, isn't he? He must be about 23, 24.
I personally would have said 22.
He's 25.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're calling him a youngster, but...
A lot of people call him a youngster and like a young player, but he's 25. He's not, he's not like 20 years old. A lot of people... It's a bit like Lingard, really. A lot of people talk about him in the sense that he is like one of the Foden-type players, but he is definitely one of the more sort of experienced. I know he's still only mid-20s, but he's certainly not as young as people think he is. So I think that for me, Declan Rice gets in ahead of Calvin Phillips. I think Rice has been really good this season. He's been such an important player for West Ham. And let's not forget, they've got Souček in the midfield, and Rice is still one of the standout players, which I think says everything you need to know. So I think for me, our midfield three, if we're going to go with a defensive midfielder, I would say Declan Rice. I don't know about you two.
I'd go Declan Rice. I don't see how Calvin Phillips has actually warranted a place in this England squad, to be honest, because I think his performances as of late haven't been great. So I don't see how he's warranted a call-up, but that's just my opinion.
For me, I'd say, if we're looking at this squad, Rice over Phillips, but I still think Henderson over both of them, because purely for experience, not just internationally, Champions League finals, he's been to two of them, he's won one of them. Cup finals, he's taken Liverpool to him, lost them, but he's taken them to him. He's got the experience for me. Henderson over, and also he did the World Cup 2018 where England were definitely more successful than people thought they were. So I think Henderson as my CDM for the Euros. But in this, I'd pick Rice over Phillips, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I agree with Henderson as well. I think for his experience and his leadership, but also his quality in that position, I think that he's definitely someone that we need to have in that midfield as that rock. So I think, what are we going to say for our midfield three for this squad then? I think we can all agree Rice. So Rice is going to be our holding midfield, but then we've got our two sort of advanced midfielders. Who do we choose here? This is a tough one.
I'm going Foden and I'm going Ward-Prowse.
Okay.
I know I'm leaving out Mason Mount, but that's because honestly, I'm gonna get a lot of maybe criticism for this, but I don't rate Mason Mount. And honestly, I think if you look at the type of player that we've got in a similar position, I wouldn't take him to the Euros. I think you've got players like Maddison, Grealish, and Foden who are all fit on their day are a better player than Mount.
That's a title. That's a title for the video.
I'm sorry.
I don't rate Mason Mount.
I think there's too many inconsistencies that he has, and I think
Oh dear.
That's just my opinion, but
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. That is fair enough. I'm not going to sit here and shame you for it.
I will. I think you're chatting waffle, to be honest with you. I'd pick Mount and Foden. But also, if it's just this squad looking forward into the attack, I think there is room for Mount or Foden to possibly play on one of the two wings. So, but in terms of the Euros, like I said before, I do. For our Euros team, if we're still doing that, I'd say Henderson, Mount, and Foden.
Okay, fair enough. I would actually have Foden on the right if I was playing him in the Euros. That's just a little hot take from me. I'd have Grealish and Foden on the left and the right.
Yeah. I'd have. Yeah, that's what I would do.
And obviously you do have the potential of, is there going to be too many inverted players in that squad? If you're trying to fit Maddison, Foden and Grealish, and Foden's going to come inside, Grealish is going to come inside, Maddison's in the attacking midfield, you sort of ask yourself the question, is there going to be too many players in that position that it's going to get overcrowded?
Maddison doesn't make my squad. Doesn't make my team, so he makes my squad, he doesn't make my team. He doesn't,
I would put Maddison over Mount, I think.
I think Mount's fourth in line.
I would put Maddison over Mount. I think Maddison is superb. Honestly, when you watch him play, he's just so elegant. Everything he does, just looks easy. I really, really like Maddison, personally.
I do. Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not in the squad, though, so we can't choose him. I would actually... The problem is, I was going to be like a hipster and say Declan Rice, Bellingham and Foden, because I think that it offers good balance to the midfield. But
no, there's not the experience yet.
I am going to agree with Matt, I think, and go Foden and Mount. Although, I don't know, because Foden and Mount are both attacking midfielders, so they could get in each other's way.
I put Ward-Prowse in.
What about? I think. Should we go back to Lingard? Should we say Foden on the right, Lingard on the left in the midfield? He's doing bits.
I would prefer to have Lingard in a. Oh, actually, I don't know.
I think Lingard works better in a 4-2-3-1.
It's a tough choice, isn't it? It depends what you want. What do we want from our midfield? That's the thing. It is very much dependent on what you want.
For me, Bellingham and Calvert Phillips aren't in the discussion at the moment. Declan Rice is already in the squad at CDM, that's a given.
So Foden, Mount and Lingard then, really, and Ward-Prowse.
Again, I'm looking ahead at the attack, and I think we should save Foden for our right wing. If we're just doing it purely based on this squad, which I think we are, then save Foden at the minute, put in Mount and Lingard in the midfield, and we'll play Foden out on the right, I think.
Do you not think that would be too crowded, though, in attacking midfield?
No.
Because that's a lot of central players.
But Foden could play out on the wing. He did against Liverpool, and he played a lot better when he was out on that right wing.
I would preferably play Foden in the front three, to be honest. So I'm going to agree, and I'm going to have Declan Rice, Lingard and Mount, I think.
I agree with that.
I think Ward-Prowse, I don't know, it's close, because I think Ward-Prowse is actually be a decent little player to put in there, but I think he's one of those players that you sort of bring off the bench, really. Yeah, I'm going to go Rice, Mount and Lingard, and I'm going to save Foden for the front three.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, Sam, you've been...
I think I've been outdone in a couple of positions now.
I know. I feel kind of bad because you've put some really good arguments for, but I think I just agree more.
That's fair enough.
I don't know. There's a lot of pressure being the head judge here. That I've instated myself as head judge, but there's not much choice, is there really? Right. Okay. So far we've got Pope, then we've got Shaw, Maguire, Stones, Walker, Rice in holding midfield, Mount and Lingard in midfield, and then Foden at right wing. So we're coming up to our last two positions, which is left wing and striker. I think I can probably think of what players are going to go there, but I won't say it yet, just so we don't spoil it for the listener. But I'm starting to form an idea of what we're probably going to agree on. But let's move on to the forwards anyway. Dominic, Calvert, Lewin, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka, Raheem Sterling and Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa. Now, I'm going to start with Watkins because obviously that was the surprise inclusion. I actually think this is a good choice. A lot of people, one of my flatmates disagreed with me. He seemed to not understand why Watkins was even near the squad. But if you look at the goals that he scored this season. It's 12 goals for Villa this season. I think he's been really, really good. Obviously, he doesn't look as good without Grealish. There's less of that creative force, but he's not going to have that issue in the England squad because we've got an abundance of attacking midfielders. I actually think this is a decent little inclusion. I don't know about you two.
Yeah, I think it's a good inclusion for what this is, the qualifiers. I think this is a good inclusion to get, again, more experience, more people with caps as possible to give Southgate that biggest option that he can. So use this time to get caps on people's names, and he's a good striker. He's got potential, and that's exciting. Again, as an England fan, to not only have Kane or Calvert Lewin, we've also got a third potential in Watkins as well, and I think he's good. I think he's exciting. Again, to point out a game against Liverpool, which I seem to have done 3 times now, but he got a hat-trick, didn't he, in that 7-2, didn't he? Just correct me if I'm wrong.
He did, yeah.
And he played well. That was obviously months ago. I think it's interesting and it's exciting, and personally, it gave me a smile. I think it's exciting to see Ollie Watkins called up.
Yeah, Sam, what about you? I mean, for me, I quite like these little, interesting inclusions, and he's been good for Villa this season. He has been inconsistent at times, but he has got a decent amount of goals.
Yeah, I think Ollie Watkins is a player that always carries a threat. He's scored, he's scored a fair amount of goals this season. I think it's one of them choices that I think, for England fans, they love to see. But I'm a bit disappointed for someone like Patrick Bamford, who easily had an argument to get into the squad, who's got more goals than Watkins this season. So I think it's a shame for him.
Yeah, that was a surprise for me, actually. I expected Bamford to be chosen for this squad because he has been good for Leeds. He's been excellent for Leeds this season. A lot of people doubted whether he'd be able to do it in the Premier League, and he's answered those critics really, really well. He's been superb. So, yeah, I do think he can count himself unlucky. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been another player that's really improved this season. Yeah, again, another striker on form. We seem to have a knack of bringing through strikers. We've got Danny Ings as well, let's not forget, who obviously hasn't been called up with his injury issues this season, and despite the amount of goals he's got, he has been struggling at points with injuries. But Calvert-Lewin as well is another very decent shout, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The way Ancelotti's changed him at Everton, you could see it in the first weeks of the season. Dropped off a tiny bit, but not enough to be noticeable because he was on such hot form at the start. You're talking September, October months. So
yeah, he was ridiculous.
He was on fire. It was literally a goal a week, or if not, 2 goals to make up for it. So Calvert-Lewin, for me, his ability in the air can very much compete with Kane. But for me, right now, he's not as good shooting. His finishing with his feet isn't as crisp, obviously, as Harry Kane, which is not going to be Harry Kane's class. So for me, that sort of gives Kane, obviously, the edge for me over Calvert-Lewin. But I'd still be excited to see him get some game time, some minutes, sub him on for Kane, just, play the last half an hour or the last 20 minutes of a game. I'd be excited to see how he does. Because in the air, he is phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, you mentioned Kane. Let's move on to Kane then. Spurs have struggled recently, lost to Arsenal, and then, of course, got somehow knocked out by Dinamo Zagreb. And despite that, I think Kane has had a good personal season. I think his goals and his assists have been excellent yet again. Sam, does he get into this squad easily? Well, this team easily for you, I guess, in that striker position, or are you looking more at someone like Calvert-Lewin or Watkins?
No, I think Harry Kane walks into this team. I think the numbers he's hit this year are brilliant, but I think it's just been being overshadowed because of how poor Spurs' season has been. So, I mean, for me, despite, Calvert-Lewin, Ollie Watkins being exciting players, I think Kane, because of what he's already done for England and what we know, what he can do, I think you've got to put him in the team.
Yeah, definitely. And, right, so let's move on to our wingers then. Obviously, we've only got the left side to choose from, so I don't think Saka may make this team. But Bukayo Saka has been a player that has been up there again with Foden, players like Phil Foden, Pedro Neto. Bukayo Saka has been up there with them this season in terms of numbers, and he's playing at wing-back as well, so he's definitely been a very, very impressive player. You could argue that he could be a right wing-back for England. I don't know. He might not get into this side, but he's a good player to have in the squad.
Yeah, I agree. He's a great, again, young talent coming through, which as an England fan is so exciting because there's so many that we've just mentioned purely in this team, and so many more coming through that haven't made this team. He's great. I think if Foden wasn't in the league, he's the best youngster coming through so far. But obviously Foden is in the league. But for me, and again, they're completely different players. So yeah, but Saka is again for such a young age. When Arsenal take him out the team, you notice even just observing it, his decision making, his quickness on the ball, his pace in general, and his determination and his actual character, his personality is. He's passionate for the sport and passionate to be successful, and I think he's a great youngster coming through. Again, I wouldn't personally pick him for this Euros, but depending on the season he has next season, the World Cup, sure. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I would agree with that, actually. Sam, about Sterling and Rashford then, two players on the left-hand side. Rashford has had a mixed season, I think that's probably fair in saying.
Yeah, his overall performance of it, I'd say, have actually been pretty poor, but he always seems to pop up with a goal or an assist, which I think, maybe compensates a little bit for maybe a poor performance. I think, they're expecting him to actually miss the first game of the Euros. They're expecting him to miss San Marino because he's got a slight injury. In an ideal world, if we were going off my team, I would have put Sterling at right wing and then Rashford at left wing, but I think I would put Sterling at left wing. If we're basing Foden at right wing, I think Sterling's been the better player this season. I don't know what his numbers are doing in terms of goals and assists.
Well, it's interesting you mention that because Sterling himself has actually had quite a poor season. He's really sort of been underperforming, and if you consider how good this City squad is, you would have to sort of say, well, he's playing in a better team. Competing for the league, and yet he's still struggling for goals. I mean, Matt, from a City fan's perspective, how do you think Sterling has performed for you this season?
Well, it's interesting. I found it really interesting that Sam picked Sterling because I was going to pick Rashford, and I thought that was quite for me, I like Sterling, obviously, as a City fan, but like you say, he's not even underperformed. It's weird because Sterling can have games where he hasn't at his best, but he still produces a goal or an assist. You think back to the Centurion season, he was contributing every other game at least, and he got us so many late last-minute winners. He's a great. I like him. He's a great footballer, but this season he just seems a tiny bit lost in the box. When he's in the box, his decision making, for me, he always seems to go for the penalty rather than the pass or the goal. But that's just my personal opinion. I could be massively wrong, but for me, that season, that's what I've seen. And he has dropped off statistics-wise for whatever reason. And I don't know, for me, ever since he got his 100th goal under Pep Guardiola, he's not yet got 101, I don't think. So it's one of them, whether it's a mentality thing, I'm not sure. But I think he has definitely had a tight, which I hate to say, because I still think he's a great player, and I still want him to stay at City, and not that he's going to make a decision over what I say. But
yeah.
I would personally pick Rashford over Sterling right now.
Yeah, we are sort of picking players that are out of form, really, which is quite interesting. But, I mean, Rashford so I've just got on my phone the sort of the player comparison thing on the Premier League app, for those of you who were wondering what I was doing. So Rashford has played 29 games this season. Sterling's only played 25. They've both got 9 goals. Rashford has got 2 more assists with 7. Sterling's only got 5. So there isn't a fat load of difference between them. I think it is a fair point, though, that you guys bring up, is that despite their maybe decent goal contributions, nothing spectacular, the performances from both of them in general have been very, very muted. They haven't really been superb. So you could sort of look at both of them and think, well, you're sort of just going to pick one, and if they don't play well, you just put the other one in, really. I guess in a starting 11, I would probably go with Sterling, just because I think he's just, I don't know. We've got quite a few City players in there. I think, him and Foden on either side, they know the team. for me, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It is a tough choice. For me, there's no real difference between Sterling and Rashford at the moment. They've both been sort of off colour. So it's quite a tough choice to think about who to pick, really.
I'm personally going to pick Rashford to leave the decision up to Sam.
No,
So
I'll go with that. I'll go with that then.
Are you saying Sterling as well?
No, I'll go with Rashford.
Oh, you're going Rashford?
Oh.
Yeah, well, because I honestly didn't really know how. I wanted to see it from a Man City fan's perspective of like how well Sterling's actually been performing. I thought maybe Sterling had been slightly outperforming Rashford, but no, I'm happy to go Rashford then. Despite him, I think he's going to miss the first.
I was actually going to go Sterling, so both of you have outvoted me. There you go.
But I do think Rashford will miss the game against San Marino. I think he's missing that.
Yeah, probably if he's got a slight knock. So I guess Sterling slots into the side. So there we have it, folks. Our completed side from this specific squad. I'm sure we'll have a debate closer to the Euros about how our actual England 11.
I'm excited for that. I'm very excited.
So we've got Nick Pope in goal. Luke Shaw and Kyle Walker are going to be our full-backs. We've got Stones and Maguire at centre-back. Rice in defensive midfield with Lingard and Mount in attacking midfield. Then Foden, Kane and Sterling as our front three. I think that's a pretty decent team. No Jadon Sancho either.
He's out because of injury, isn't he? He's picked up a knock.
Yeah, I think he is. He's picked up a knock at Dortmund. But we haven't mentioned him at all for our Euro squad, so that'll be interesting. He hasn't really performed for England so far.
I think we've had quite an easy task today because, like you say, there's no Grealish, no Sancho.
Yeah.
Maddison wasn't in, and attacking usually has a bit more of a debate. But with this sort of lineup that Southgate produced, it's quite nice. And I think personally, we picked quite a good 11.
Yeah.
Subs
this
included.
For Southgate to chuck Cody and Dyer in and play 5 at the back.
Yeah, probably with Ward-Prowse up front or something stupid, and Calvin Phillips, playing right wing or something. Who knows?
To be fair, though, I wouldn't be surprised if you see someone like Jude Bellingham, Dyer, or Cody getting starts against San Marino. I think they'll be saving. Maybe Maguire and Stones will be for like
San
Poland.
Marino.
I think maybe those are their games. Maybe San Marino you can put maybe different other players in.
Yeah,
good point. I mean, we play San Marino, Albania, and Poland in our World Cup qualifying. I think that we could probably expect to win in all 3 of those, is what you would expect. Poland will be a tricky one, actually.
I'm not jinxing anything.
Yeah, I don't really want to jinx anything, but Poland is going to be very difficult because Lewandowski is on ridiculous form at the moment.
That's true. He always is, season in, season out, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a ridiculous player, but he's only one player. They do have some good players, though, Poland. It's not the best team, but they do have some decent players in there. San Marino, of course, we always seem to get San Marino. Do we just get them all the time? Is that just, do we have to play San Marino?
It's like Man City. It's like Man City in the Champions League, always getting the easy draws.
Oh. That's a debate for another day, but you hit me there. You hit me there.
We can have a whole other episode on that. I think we do have 3 weeks off for those of you listening. So we are going to be doing more of these sorts of episodes where we're going to be just debating, which I think will make a nice difference. I think with the international break, I wanted to try and do something different. Because we've got 3 weeks off, I thought, you know what, I've got a bit more time, we can do a bit more planning. And we can get some more specific episodes done instead of the usual, right, we're going to look at this sport, because let's be honest, I don't know a fat lot about rugby. I'm still learning it, but I don't know a fat lot about it. So I think we're definitely going to do more of these debate-type episodes. So, if we certainly want to talk about easy draws, that can be one of the topics that we can have up for discussion if you want. And of course, in the YouTube comments, if you are watching, then make sure to leave any suggestions that you may have if anyone ever finds this video. Make sure to leave any suggestions for debating topics in the comments down below. I'll be messaging you guys on the group anyway, and you'll have to give me some ideas for conversations to have, because we've certainly got the time to do them. So if there's anything that's been playing on your mind football-wise that you really want to rant about or have a discussion on, then make sure to let me know, and I'll make sure to get that done for you guys. So yeah, is there anything in particular you guys think maybe just a preview? Is there anything that you guys really, there's something bugging you?
In terms of football, not off the top of my head, but in terms of another sport, I was very much having a debate before about Fury versus AJ, which I think would be a nice discussion we could have.
Yes.
That would be a good discussion.
That would be a good one. Yeah, I'd be happy to have that. Any sport, any debate, we cover it because we are Shock Sport. We're the best sports show in university radio, as expected. Right, thank you for listening for today's episode. Thank you to Matt and to Sam for joining me, and of course all you listeners on Spotify and all you viewers on YouTube. Depending on how things go, I might make a Shock Sport YouTube channel. I've been using the Shock Radio YouTube channel at the moment, but I kind of want to make my own little thing. Hopefully, once restrictions are down, we'll be able to do some funnier videos. I'm thinking of maybe getting the group together at goals or something. We can do dizzy penalties, crossbar challenge, all that sort of thing. I've got an idea for some shows that we can maybe do once restrictions are down, which these guys don't know about yet. But I've been sat there planning it for quite a long time. So I'll maybe, if everyone's not too busy, then I can spring that on people, and we can have a bit more fun and make this show a bit more entertaining and just more appealing to people. But as always, thank you for listening. We hoped you enjoyed the episode. Make sure to leave your opinions down below, and also, get excited. International football doesn't have to be boring. It's become less boring because England are actually okay in terms of players. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Premier League to come back, to be honest. I'm not a massive fan of international football, apart from when the tournaments come around. So yeah, Matt, Sam, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Did you get the most out of this discussion? Do you feel happy with this England team?
I'm happy. Based on the squad we got, I'm happy with the England team we made, I think.
You okay there, Sam?
Well, well, I'm not from England, but yeah, if I was a Scotland fan, I'd be happy if that team came up against us in the Euros.
Well, I'm sure we can have a whole episode delving into how Che Adams is going to improve the Scotland side.
Yeah, we could do. Yeah,
that's one game I'm very excited for. England Scotland, first game of the Euros. That is going to be
a very interesting game. Yeah.
Pubs back open. Oh, don't get me started.
Do you reckon I should wear my Scotland shirt into a pub?
Oh, please no! You will get beaten up. We've got a very passionate crowd down here in Salford.
That could be a good laugh.
Please don't do that, Sam. For your
sing the national anthem.
Yeah, no, for your well-being as much as everyone else's, I think it's probably best if you don't. But yeah, anyway, thank you for joining us, listeners and viewers. We hope to see you in the next one. But until then, take care.
Cheers.